Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and let me introduce you to the BMW M3 with added XDrive. Right, so I'm at a BMW media day and I've not got the M3 for too long, so let's cut straight to the chase. Under the bonnet we've got a 3 litre straight 6 with a couple of turbos producing 503 brake horsepower, and that's pushed through all four wheels via an 8-speed automatic. And that's because this has the XDrive 4-wheel drive system. However, it is rear-wheel drive biased, and if you go through some of the controls there in the drive modes, you can actually make it 2-wheel drive. But that added traction will definitely help with this November weather, despite the fact that the sun has just come out. So join me on this very brief drive of this very exciting performance saloon. When it comes to styling, yes, we've got the big nostril grille up front, but the car's been out for over a year now, and I think we've all made our decision on it. Now, I actually like it with this silver metallic, and it does work really well, and it still gives the M3 a very aggressive stance. And apart from the XDrive, later on, we are going to see a touring version of the M3, and that's definitely going to rub Audi up the wrong way. Never mind. But yeah, I'm really loving the striking look of this new M3, and actually there are no badges on the exterior to let you know it's an XDrive. You'll have to let a rear-wheel drive version know that when you meet them at the lights. But yeah, because I haven't got the car for that long, let's very quickly look at that interior. Sat in the front of the M3 competition, you are greeted by a very subtle interior. You'd never think this was a performance saloon. Of course, I'm joking. I mean, it is very bold in here from BMW. I do actually love the orange, and I've kind of realised I might have picked the wrong t-shirt to wear today because I seem to kind of blend into the seats. Now, speaking of the seats, they are very figure-hugging, and if you are of my size or perhaps a little bit wider, you might find it a little bit kidney-pinching. However, they do remind me of a Honda Civic Type R, so once you're actually in the seats, yeah, they're actually very comfy, and they do hold you in all the right places. But as I said, if you are a little bit wider than myself, and I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, you might feel it just being a little bit more unforgiving. But I think I could do a long journey in the M3 and come out the other end relatively relaxed and not too sweaty and flustered. But the seats, I absolutely love the design of them. I love the bold orange and black, and they've actually got holes in them and vents, so it actually kind of keeps you cool whilst you're on the move. So another feature I do like. Now, of course, in terms of the interior design, it's very reminiscent of the 3 Series and 4 Series, but we've got all the sporty touches. We've got carbon fibre everywhere, we've got this orange leather here on the dashboard, and we've also got the M1 and M2 buttons on the steering wheel, along with some plastic and carbon fibre paddles. So it is all very sporty. So yeah, this kind of M3 is starting to win me over, and this is actually the first time I've ever driven an M3. The only M car I've ever driven before this was an X6M, but you wouldn't kind of consider that a pure M car. You always think of an M3 and an M4 when you think of BMW's M division. But anyway, that's the interior of this new M3. Now, we're not going to look at the rear seats and the boot. I'm going to save that for a full review of a 3 Series, but I think we should take this car for a drive and see what it's like with that added XDrive. So once you get driving in the M3 competition, first impressions are exactly how you'd expect them to be. You press that engine start button, you get a lovely burble from the exhaust, and you get a nice vibration coming through the cabin. Now, I'm not sure if it's sound piped in, but I know that's something that BMW are doing quite a bit these days. Then when you get driving, you do find, yes, the suspension is pretty firm, but it's not uncomfortable. I'm not having any kind of major issues driving around in the M3, and I'm driving on some nice A roads, but also a couple of quite shocking B roads, and I've not found it horribly uncomfortable. In fact, in conjunction with the seats, I have been very comfortable sat here. And of course, when it comes to the boring stuff, visibility is absolutely fine. So looking out the front of the car is absolutely fine. Plenty of view of the road ahead. The A-pillars are quite thick, but I've not found myself looking around them at any junctions. But if I look over my shoulder, I do find I've got quite a thin C-pillar, and rear visibility is really good as well. So in terms of using the M3 every day, yeah, you can definitely do that. But of course, the reason you buy an M3 or M4 or any M car for that matter is not for the visibility, it's not for the practicality, and in the sense as well, the comfort. You buy it because it's a performance saloon, so that when you put your foot down, that performance is there, on tap, ready to go. And because now you've got the XDrive and that power going to all four wheels, it does mean then you have got the confidence to chuck it in some corners when it's a little bit damp, and you've got that security to know it's going to hold you there. So that is something. Now, of course, if you make any two-wheel drive car, all-wheel drive, there are going to be a couple of compromises. So the first one is weight. So this XDrive version of the M3 is about an extra 48 to 50 kilos heavier than the rear-wheel drive version. But I think you've got to be a technician who drives one of these cars for BMW every day to really spot that difference. Second, then comes price. So the XDrive is around about £3,000 more expensive than the rear-wheel drive version. And as I mentioned, there's actually no badges on the exterior to let you know it's the XDrive. So if you pull up to the lights next to another M3 and they're looking at you, he's going to think, if he's got the rear-wheel drive version, that you're going to have very similar performance, but you're not. You see, here's the benefit of having four-wheel drive. You actually shade about half a second off the 0 to 60 time, which actually makes it 3.5 seconds. And we're kind of approaching speeds now, which is really quite spectacular and scary at the same time. I mean, I remember the days when the M3s were kind of 5-6 seconds to 60 miles an hour, and that was deemed hugely impressive. But now sub 4 seconds, again, is a very impressive time. And it's on a par with, dare I say, some supercars out there. I mean, the Porsche Taycan I drove, which was the turbo version, that 0 to 60 was 3.2 seconds. I mean, that was highly impressive for a car weighing over 2 tons. But yeah, I mean, the engine, the internal combustion engine, is not dead yet. So, as I said, the new M3 competition with XDrive can do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Let's see what that's like. I think that's very impressive. The car does pull incredibly well, and because you got that all-wheel drive traction, there was no slip as I put my foot down. So what's the ride and handling like in the M3? Well, as I mentioned earlier on the first impressions, the ride is quite firm, particularly at low speed, and yes, you probably saw my wobbly bits all wobbling around a bit, but it wasn't uncomfortable, and that was a nice, pleasant surprise. Again, I think that might be in conjunction with these sports seats, but they do work well together and they do hold me in place. As I said, just be wary that if you're a little bit wider than myself, you might not be the most comfortable, but I do believe these are an optional extra if you wanted to go for them. But when you get a little bit quicker on the roads, the ride does tend to settle down a bit, and although yes, it's not going to be a magic carpet ride like a Rolls Royce, it's actually more comfortable than I was expecting. Now, you can probably see me moving around a bit, but again, the seat's holding me in place and I'm not uncomfortable. It's just all adds up to that performance that you get from these M cars. Now, when it comes to refinement, of course, there are going to be compromises because this is a performance saloon and we got big, chunky performance tyres on the car. So there is a bit of road noise coming into the cabin. But it's not deafening, so again, I do feel I could do a long journey in the M3 and come out the other end feeling nice and relaxed, or relatively relaxed for that matter. So yeah, again, using the M3 day to day is actually possible. Now, next comes the handling, and this was a bit of a surprise. Now, not a surprise in a bad way, but the steering and the steering feel is very light compared to what I was imagining. I mean, I've driven BMWs of old, and the steering was very heavy. You had to almost manhandle the car around corners and such. But this feels, yeah, very light, and of course, as soon as you start turning the steering wheel, the car reacts, and of course it's going to. But it's a little bit lighter than I was expecting, and I think as a result, I kind of feel as though there's a little bit less feedback and feel through the wheel, if that makes sense. I was just expecting this to be quite heavy, and as I kind of go around the roundabout now, I have to, I don't know, heft and move the steering to get the M3 to do what I want. But no, it's really light. Parking the M3 is a doddle. You've got front and rear parking sensors and reversing cameras. But it's easy to manoeuvre around a car park. It's easy to drive day to day. But that's kind of the big surprise. And I don't want to say it's a disappointment, but it was something I wasn't expecting with the steering feel, that kind of light steering feel. And that's also with this car in M mode, which I've got it in now. So yeah, when it comes to the handling is really nice, but I just expected a bit more weight in the wheel and a bit more kind of, I don't know, manhandling I'd have to do for the M3 in order to get it to do what I wanted. So what are my thoughts on the BMW M3 competition with added XDrive here on its Media Day launch? Well, I'm really impressed by it, and it gives me that kind of feeling that I got with the Ford Bullet Mustang, that there is still a place for performance cars and we don't have to go full electric just yet, although BMW have got you covered with the new i4M. I do love the M3. I think in terms of styling, I prefer it to the M4. It might just be my age showing, but I kind of like that 4-door practicality over the 3-door coupe side or 2-door coupe side. So that's something I really do like about this M3. And you've just got the added confidence now that you can chuck it into corners, and you've got that confidence with the 4-wheel drive grip, so it's not really going to let go, although you still can have fun because it is rear-wheel drive bias. And when it comes to the compromises with the weight and the price, I mean, weight-wise, I don't think you're going to notice the difference. It's only 48 kilos, and I think you've got to be working with BMWs every day to really notice it when you push the car. And then you've got the extra £3,000 difference compared to the rear-wheel drive version. But I think the performance of this XDrive nullifies those negatives, because you can be sat at the lights with another M3 with a rear-wheel drive, and you can just beat them at the lights, and you'll get this sense of happiness and smugness that M3 driver won't, because he just kind of sees you pulling away. But you can still know that you can both have the same amount of fun, even though you've got 4-wheel drive on this M3. So yeah, I'm really impressed with the M3. The biggest surprise, I would say, is the fact of I wasn't expecting the steering to be as light as it is, but that's the only thing that's really surprised me. I've really liked the ride, the comfort, and actually the handling is really good. Yeah, the M3 still has a place with an internal combustion engine to put a big smile on your face. And then, of course, something that an electric car can't do is when you put your foot down, you've got that as well. And I know there's a bit of sound, I think, piped through the speakers, but at least you know you've got an engine there. You haven't got an electric car pumping engine noises in, because, yeah, that's just not right. So, the new BMW M3 competition with added XDrive, yeah, it's pretty much the perfect all-round performance saloon. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my first drive of a BMW M3 competition with the XDrive. If you've got any questions about the car, please then put them through in the comment section below. I'll do my utmost to answer them. But I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications icon. You know what to do. Follow on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Stay safe, wear a mask, maintain your social distancing where possible, and I will see you all in the next video. So take care and bye-bye.